Kramer. I don't know if you can hear me, but if you can, will you please test your audio?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
A little louder, please. No, I'm kidding. Yes, we can hear you. Excited to have you here.
Excited to be here. Was my volume high enough?
Yes, it is. We can hear you great.
Can I steal that back and really?
Sorry.
I just want to pin ours if I can.
Got an audience for a work session.
Silly goose.
All right, now
That's
now you've got a back shot.
I can move the mouse.
I just have it frozen on here
Yes.
so that he can
Start the
meeting, but
I'm good to leave my stuff here and I'll come up when it's
How are you doing? Today at work on a Monday?
No, you didn't.
On a payroll Monday.
You switched to Microsoft?
Yeah. I don't even know my password anymore. My brain's fried today. Oh yeah, just like, let's switch. Okay.
They're completely different.
Oh yes. Well, the worst part is all your files. Like,
What was the reasoning for going together?
well, you can figure out the reason.
Money?
Yeah.
I wouldn't think that Microsoft would be cheaper.
I tried to argue. Tried.
So you are. Wow. I remember when they switched to
I bet you do.
and that was wild. Like I was like, what am I doing?
And where's everything I need? You know, like, I don't mind it.
You're broken. My computer's not turning on. Oh wait, now it is. He was right.
kidding. Sarah, you're hired.
I think I'd take her up on that today.
I'll take my Chromebook and do that.
When Julie Hitchens comes to do the Rebuild Marshtown grant, we'll have all the board members get in the photo op for that.
Say that one more
This
time.
was not in the plan.
I was just gonna say it was not. That was not in the board notes. Dr. Schuig.
Sometimes things change. Last minute. So
Didn't you
when
read the
she-
fine print at the bottom?
when Julie Hitchens
Last
comes,
minute adjustments.
because she'll have a big check to do a photo
Throw that
op
out there.
of
I'll let.
Rebuild Marshtown. I'll have all
Vote
you
no on
guys
that.
get in that picture.
Okay. I don't think it's an item.
You got at least 30 minutes notice.
What's the minimum that we're supposed to be?
I don't know.
30
I'm
seconds.
just telling you, you get 30 minutes.
Get yourself ready.
Yeah. Figure it out. Sean, are you ready?
Oh, okay.
We just
This is just to hang out, talk.
right.
Yeah, no, it's 5 o'clock, and so we're gonna start the work session to try to stay on schedule, and so, Dr. Smith, you're up.
Okay. All right. Well, it is a privilege to sit before you and share our district data from the 24-25 school year. Also extremely excited to begin the 25-26 school year. So thank you to all of our leaders who have attended tonight. I think that everybody had a chance to review their attendance center plan reviews either through the video or the presentation format. A lot of incredible celebrations that you can find there, and you can also see a real strong focus on continuous improvement, which I think is something that really builds the pride that we have here at Marshalltown. So I think my mouse should work here. Everything we do, and you've seen this on those attendance center plans, revolves around our mission and that statement that we share together every single board member or every single board meeting. And then we really have broken that down into the knowledge, skills, and positive mindset. What does that mean for us here at Marshalltown? So that's a part of every single building plan, and it's really our anchor. But tonight we are going to talk through our different student achievement results, both for ISASP, Iowa Statewide Assessment of Student Progress, which is a requirement from the state of Iowa, and then our FAST results, the Formative Assessment System for Teachers. And that is not required that we use FAST specifically, but we do have to choose something, and we use FAST because the state makes it available to us for free. For the younger grade levels at least. So we're really excited to continuously come back to these results, and we have multiple years worth of results to be able to share with you to look at our progress. You can see the grade levels that we test. So for example, when we think through ISASP are the student achievement results that actually feed into the Iowa School Performance Profile, which we'll talk about here in a bit. But notice that that starts at 3rd grade. And for FAST, we're able to actually screen our students as low as kindergarten all the way up through 11th grade, and we use IGDs for preschool. This is the same as last year and the year before. So if you have been here now a few years, this feels probably a little bit familiar to you. These tests are adaptive, meaning if I'm a student and I'm able to score well on a question, it's going to bring back an even harder question for me, where if I were to get something wrong, it's going to bring forward a question that's not as hard, just to try to pinpoint the skill score for each individual student. I don't know if you were a kid in the 80s, 90s, where you had like Iowa Test of Basic Skills and every single test was timed. These tests are not timed. Our students actually are allowed to take as much time as they need. And there are some students, I'm sure our principals could vouch for it, that do take a lot of time when they're taking these assessments. And we have others that race possibly a little bit too quickly through them, and they're not trying their best. So it really depends on the student, but time is not something that factors into whether or not a student is proficient or not. I think that's really important, especially thinking about how adaptive our tests are. If you're presenting harder and harder questions to students to make those tests more challenging for them, they're going to need the adequate amount of time to be able to take those. Required participation, yes and yes. We definitely shoot for 100% participation. You'll see some of those measures here in my data that I share. Across the state, I believe there's about a 97 to 98% average participation across the state. Oh, sorry. There we go. And then results included in the Iowa School Performance Profile, which we'll be talking about next. ISASP, yes. FAST, no. All right. So we're going to start with, and I know that Theron, I can only remember you walking into my office and telling me the great news that we moved Anson and Rogers off of the comprehensive list, and I think that was one of probably the highlights of the fall. Just thinking back to the really intentional work that we did with the Department of Education and how hard the teachers worked to implement their high-quality instructional materials at both of those buildings. And we're seeing those buildings now, you have your comprehensive status met, targeted status is met, no support needed. And if you look across all of our elementary buildings, that's true. And if you think back to that strategic plan that I think is a couple pages long, I'm not sure how long, we have a goal for all of our buildings to be commendable or higher. And I have shared that with our staff. I know that our principals are well versed in it as well. But when I'm out in the buildings, I'll have teachers repeat back, we know our goal is to be commendable or higher. And really the Iowa School Performance Profile takes together, or, accumulates achievement, growth in achievement, ELPA 21 growth, graduation rate for high school, attendance, all of the pieces that we really know are critical for our schools to be deemed healthy, and it's really exciting to see the progress that we've made. We've had some schools that have remained commendable, and when they get their results, they are always like looking at the number score to see how close they are to high performing. And I genuinely believe we're going to hit high performing very soon. So it's exciting to see the achievement come through in different ways. I really appreciate that the Iowa School Performance Profile measures both student achievement and student growth. So we're able to take our kindergartners through FAST and prepare them for that third grade ISASP. But really the student achievement, including the growth by fourth grade, is what gives us these measures. One more thing, science is not measured at the elementary level. Science is measured at 5th grade, 8th grade, and 10th grade. And we'll look at those here in a bit too. And I can't figure out which way to scroll. There we go. For our secondary schools, we have some work to do, and we have been talking and working even this summer around some different school improvement kind of plans. At Lenahan, you can see they have one targeted area, which is students on IEPs. And I'm going to just draw your attention to also Miller has students with IEPs. High school has students with IEPs. And when these results came out and we were really thinking through the lens of bringing in a solution tree conference, we knew that we needed to focus on how to best serve our students, not only students within special education, all students, but specifically looking at differentiation. And these targeted statuses actually take their overall rating and bump it down one. So for example, Lenahan scored acceptable with their point score, but because they're targeted with special ed, they are needs improvement. They're bumped down one. Same thing for Miller, same thing for the high school. And the virtual academy has been priority, continues to be priority. I know at one point Eric Guslinga had done some research on how do we compare to other virtual academies. It's not proving to be the most successful Iowa School Performance Profile across the state to have a virtual academy. And there are a lot of different circumstances that go into students attending the virtual academy. I think there are a lot of great success stories, and I think there's also a lot of stories out there that it could be a safety concern, that this is the best fit for the student at this time. It could be that we have a student who's in some sort of panic, anxiety attack, so school isn't the best place, but also they're not engaging with work at home either. So there's a lot of work to do, and I think all of our principals that are sitting here behind me would agree with that, and I totally believe that we have the best team ready to do that work, but ideally, step number one is to get these targeted statuses removed. And really then we're able to, instead of taking a step down off the ladder, we're showcasing the score or the category that we've earned on that Iowa School Performance Profile. Okay, so this is is there a way to zoom out a little bit? Thank you. Yep, perfect. Okay, so I've shared this with you probably 3 years in a row now, and I just want to keep bringing it back. As a district, all content, so every single test taken, we are 54% proficient in comparison to last year, 53% proficient. So we've increased by 1%. That's well, I shouldn't even guess because there's probably about 9,000 tests. So I can get you the total number of tests that would be, but you can kind of start to see how that increase of 1% has bubbled up through ELA, math, and science. So in ELA, we remained the same, 56% proficient, 56% proficient, but you can see there's been some changes within the grade levels. Third and fourth grade, anything in blue is above that MCSD average. So third and fourth grade literacy went up 4%, 56% to 60%, which is excellent. Could not be more proud of our 7th and 8th grade. I don't know if it's been 2 years, but I know this has been a huge goal to get you guys above the district average, and I know they have worked their butts off to do this. So jumping from 54 to 58% proficient is excellent and above the district average. We still have this 5th and 6th grade, mainly what I call the transition from 4th to 5th grade, and I talked even today extensively with Joe Kramer about this. But you can see 5th and 6th grade for ISAS are below the district average, and 9th through 11th grade missed it by 1% as well. And we'll look at these broken down by grade level. Math, overall 54% proficient. Last year we were at 56% proficient. Remember, we put in a brand new curriculum this last year. It's highly common to see a dip with that first year of implementation, although I would say we have some incredible gains as well, which has been great to see, and you'll see those coming up too. 3rd and 4th grade, they did decrease by 1% proficient. 5th and 6th grade, 61 to 57, so again, above district average, but we saw a decrease there. Here's a great increase. Proud of you, Miller Middle School. We've got 55% with 7th and 8th grade combined compared to 52%, and they were above the district average. And then 9th through 11th really below district average, but also maintaining the same percent proficiency. We'll talk more about that in the slides to come. Science is like this beautiful bright spot, actually. I know have come to the table before where I just talk about how hard the science test is, and we've recently put in place those new science materials, which have shown great growth here in our achievement. So 8th grade went from 43% proficient up to 51% proficient, and 10th grade 40% with a 14% jump. This is incredible. I think there's a lot to be said. I know our teachers are amazing. I know our leadership's amazing. I would say also at the high school, they have incredible learning conditions now. Learning new science classrooms makes a difference too with the learning that they can have and take place. I am interested with the 5th grade because we're changing up the K through 6 science materials that the kids will be exposed to see if we see this steadily incline along with the 8th and the 10th grade for next year and the year beyond. We'll be putting those new materials in place this next year. Okay,
Shauna,
so that's as a whole. Yes.
For clarification, so when you're comparing one year to another, you're comparing somewhat different groups of kids, right? You're comparing one year's 5th and 6th to another year's 5th and 6th, so.
Correct. I do have charts that will show some cohorts here in a bit. But yes, that's correct. Okay, so here we see years 2021 through 2025, third through sixth grade in ELA. So the way that Theron was just asking that question, if you wanted to look at a cohort of kids, you could look at third grade last year, where my mouse is here, comparative to fourth grade this year. Does that make sense? If you want to look at third grade in the orange to see how they are performing in fifth grade, you jump all the way over to this blue bar for fifth grade. So we see our kids really bounce from that third to fourth. Our third grade scores close to 60% proficient, which is great. Ideally, we keep building, and we need to find whatever secret recipe there is to prevent this transitional fall into fifth grade. And I know that I've shared that with you before. Here's the 7th through 11th proficiency in ELA and ISASP. Again, for years 2021 through 2025. And if we're thinking through the lens of the Miller Middle School success that we just saw, we have this cohort of 7th graders that were here and were tested here, which is going to be helpful on that Iowa School Performance Profile in two ways. It's going to show great growth, and it's going to show an increase in student achievement. Here are our math for 3 through 6 results. Interestingly, very similar, slightly up there on third grade, fourth grade slightly lower. But if you look at cohort third to cohort fourth, we see growth. Still this fifth grade implementation dip and the rebound in sixth grade. And that rebound is pretty big when you look at this cohort last year in fifth grade to where they landed in sixth grade. And sixth grade really had a lot to celebrate because that's the highest that those scores have been in the last 5 years. If I'm moving too fast or too slow, let me know.
Do we see similar dips between 6th and 7th?
We do see dips. I don't believe it's as egregious as the 4th to 5th. All right, so here's 7th through 11th math proficiency. Again, I just want to highlight because it's just a huge celebration, and I would love for it to be a part of the TR News article that we are seeing great things out of Miller Middle School. Great growth here, 7th grade to 8th grade. I know they were just beyond excited when they received the results and are really motivated to continue this work. I'm thrilled because this is the first year implementing a material, and it's really hard not to see an implementation dip. I know that their incoming 6th graders had more students in the advanced category, meaning they have 2 compact classes for 7th grade, which has never been done before. So that's just showing students are able to score at a higher achieving rate. 9th grade, there's a bit of a transition dip there, similar to what we've seen for that 5th grade transition. I think it is showcasing that our students are coming to the high school ready. And I don't know if you remember, but last year I had this master plan for math. We were going to have Algebra 1, not Algebra 1A, 1B, and really create like a system of support for kids. And I also don't know if you remember last year we lost 2 math teachers out of the high school staff, and we had to really kind of scramble. So there were well-laid plans that weren't executed quite as well as I would have hoped. Justin's in the room, and he can vouch that he and I have already talked through these results because we know that this is definitely a high leverage area, that if we can get more of our students to come into 9th grade showing proficiency in math, it's not only going to support their math scores, but it's also going to impact their science scores. If you look cohort to cohort, you do see a jump. So these 9th graders do jump for 10th grade. And these 10th graders do increase into 11th grade. So he will see growth. You'll see growth on your Iowa School Performance Profile. All right, and here's our science results. So you can see 5th grade. You know, there was a time where we were struggling to even reach the 40% of our students to be proficient. I'm highly confident that our new materials are more rigorous and more standard aligned, so I'm excited to see how this data is impacted by those new materials. 8th grade had a jump like we talked through, and 10th grade also had a jump, which is just excellent to see. Switching gears, this is fast. Hopefully I'm not boring you guys to death. So we're no longer looking at ISAST, we're looking at FAST results. And this is math over time. So you can see all the way back to the 2021 school year, percent proficient, or at benchmark is how we call it in FAST, and then over here to 24, 25. So we really built up to that 55%. Last year we were down at that 46% and now back up to 53. So I'm very excited to see that growth. And this is probably one of the most exciting elementary level slides that we have to share. Our K through 6 literacy results are at 51% proficient or at benchmark, which is the best that it's been since 2021. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into MTSS systems at our elementary levels, and I just, in order to make sure our students are at that benchmark at these very young ages. So this slide is actually referring to our preschool students, and I know that there's a lot of bars with a lot of colors. Ideally, you want to have very few of the gray, like you want, because discontinuing the assessment means that it's just, they've maybe gotten so many wrong that it's not worth continuing. If you see fall, winter, spring, so this is fall. This is a different test than winter and spring, picture naming. You can see the improvement from winter to spring. Look at the winter, you have picture naming is down here for the percent proficient, and then it grows all the way up to here, and we have far less of those assessments that have been discontinued. Same thing with rhyming. You can see that growth in that green bar. Sign identification and which one doesn't belong. And then finally, alliteration, which is a very hard skill, moving from winter to spring. I think I always include this in some capacity. I just wanted to kind of bring it back and say this is still true. MCSD does surpass the state average when we look at our students who are not free and reduced lunch or ELL students, meaning students that really aren't presented with many barriers. We're exceeding the state in their percent proficient in both math and ELA. So in a lot of ways, this dispels the myth that some people think, they might be able to find a better education elsewhere because Marshalltown is building MTSS systems to support the students who need them. This supports the idea that we're providing a rigorous education for all of our students, including the students who do not have those additional barriers. And here at Marshalltown, that's 18% of our student population. And I don't know why I put 53% over by ELA. In the state of Iowa, it's 53%. So you can see how different we are comparative to the state of Iowa.
You're saying the state of Iowa, 53% of the kids are non-free and reduced and non-ELL. Is that what you're saying, Shauna? Okay.
Correct. Yeah. So in Marshalltown, 18%, state of Iowa, 53%. We are looking at the state of Iowa here at 81% proficient. We're at 82%. That's in math. And then in literacy, 77% versus 76%. And I think I shared this same statistic with you last year, but I just wanted to reassure you that we're still outperforming the state in this area. I shared this with you as well last year. We do surpass the state average in absenteeism. And Joe Kramer has been my partner in crime to really think through drilling down into that data, and I can't wait to share that with you. It's just kind of a new set of data for us to be able to take a look at. But I wanted to share this with you first. So 53% of Marshalltown kids attended 95% or more of the school days. Last year, that number was 46%. So that's great. We saw growth. We have Ellie Harris Medina, who has been working tirelessly on attendance, and it really shows that she's been coordinating with our buildings, and our buildings have had put a lot of effort into their attendance teams. 90% or more. Last year we had 75%. This year we had 80%. Again, that's wonderful growth. This one's interesting. Attended 80% or fewer of the school days. So these students have missed at least 20% of the school year. Last year, that was 9% of our student population. This year, it was 6% of our student population. And in all cases, when you compare us to the Iowa Department of Education, all 532,000 students in Iowa, we are discrepant when it comes to absenteeism. So I am going to introduce Joe Kramer here. He is a longtime friend with our Central Rivers AEA, the only person I would really trust to manipulate data in this way. And I invited him to join so that he could share with you the results that he found when comparing student achievement to attendance.
All righty. Can you hear me?
We can.
All right. Well, first of all, again, my name is Joe Kramer. I'm an assessment consultant from Central Rivers AEA. Glad to be here. And I'm tickled anytime that Shauna calls with some data work. I love doing that. So you just reviewed a lot of descriptive data that tells a story regarding how Marshalltown Community School District is performing across time, but also how they are performing compared to the state in some cases. We wanted to add to that story, and we asked the question, what about the attendance and its relationship to student performance? One would intuitively think that as attendance improved, so would other metrics of school performance, such as a student's performance on the ISASP, fast screening data, A reading and math, but also a more holistic measure of academic performance as measured by GPA. So that's exactly what we did. You can move to the next slide. We conducted a series of correlation analyses. These are just some statistical analyses using paired data. So every student that we looked at in a particular study, if it was the connection between attendance and ISASP English performance, we needed to have a attendance, percent of days attended, or actually the inverse, percent of days um, absent, with an ISAS score. So all of these were paired data. If a particular student, because they weren't here at that time of the testing or whatnot, their data were thrown from the analysis. So we can move on. Just to kind of put some context, actually go back one screen. I may have been premature there. So just a reminder for you folks, a correlation is a measure of the relationship between two variables. And the relationship does not necessarily mean that there's a cause and effect relationship. So for example, we're looking at number of absences to test performance. And to kind of share what we've seen, we are finding mostly a negative correlation. So that means as one variable increases, number of absences, the other variable decreases. And then a positive would be as one variable increases, so does the other. So we're going to use to the left this is kind of a way to interpret what those numbers mean. And really, until you get to about a 0.3 or a 0.4 and above, whether negative or positive, it's really very weak and nothing that we're really going to make a whole lot of high stakes decisions regarding. And for those of you who have more of a visual orientation, you can see this is a picture of the data, what it might look like if we put it on a scatter plot. All right, we can move forward. So the connection between attendance and GPA was probably the most significant. So again, look on the right-hand side, the left-hand side, the y-axis, you will see those are the correlations. So again, it being negative as absenteeism rates increase or percentage of days missing increases, GPA decreases. And we can see pretty similar across the grade levels. And given that we only had GPAs, at least formally, for 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, that's the only analysis that we were able to do. So 0.4 and above, so these are moderately related variables. As we move to the next one, this one's looking at attendance and ISAS scores. So you'll see ELA far left, in the middle math and science. And as we all know already, only 5th, 8th, and 10th grade take the science tests. So there we're missing some of the grades. Look on the left-hand side, the y-axis, and you'll see most of the correlations are in the very weak, negligible area. Only a few, I think 2, get us to 0.3 and above. So again, it is what it is. But you will also see that even though it may not be significant, we are seeing a pattern, a very distinct pattern of the strength of the relationship increasing from the low grades, 3rd grade, up through 11th grade. So that's part of the story that we can tell with these data. All right, we can move to the next one. Pretty much rinse and repeat. This time, instead of ISAS scores, these would be the screening data, both A rating and math. Again, I'm going to have you look at the y-axis on the left. Most of the correlations are, negative 0.10, 1.2 and below. So nothing that we really want to get too excited about. But again, we see the general pattern of that correlation increases in intensity the older the student is, but not as good as the last one. But again, it's some data that we looked at. And so the story that we are going to tell with our correlations is that all correlations, with the exception of GPA, are negligible or very weak at best. GPA and attendance have the strongest, and that's a moderate correlation. Really something that I think is worthy of digging into, and what might be powering that situation. All correlations are negative with a pattern of increased strength as students get older. So with all the correlations, even though many of them were weak or negligible, we're seeing more of a situation where as percent absenteeism increases, performance does decrease on different measures. And then, we also looked, is there a difference in attendance impact between ISAS tests? And no, we really, at this point in time, with the data we have in front of us, did not find that. Now, one statistical test that we really wanted to do, but we just do not have our hands on the data quite yet. We can maybe share this with you last time is it's one thing to look at a status score. That would be that scale score that all of these data were built upon. And that scale score actually also was part of what Shauna shared with you regarding the number and percent of students who had a scale score above a particular level to look at who is proficient or not. We really want to look at growth because you could have low performing students who are showing amazing growth, but who still may have a pretty low scale score, not yet proficient. And conversely, you may also have students who are high flying students who aren't growing a lot. So we are curious to see how that would play into these correlations, throwing attendance into that. So more to come with that.
All right, so I have some recaps here that we can work through, and then we'll give you some opportunity to ask questions. Some celebrations, and I know that our principals already had many of them in their attendance center plan reviews for you. Two of our schools are no longer comprehensive, which is a huge celebration. They are highly motivated to continue to improve. Science percent proficient for both 8th and 10th grade increased dramatically on ISASP. We've surpassed the state of Iowa again in multiple subgroups. K through 6 fast literacy is the highest percent proficient that we've had in the past 5 years. And I know that I didn't have a slide for this, but this was absolutely incredible. Our ELPA 21 exits, so our students who are English language learners who are passing ELPA 21 and actually exiting those services, we had approximately 200 of those students this year. That is, I think it was an approximate increase of between 90 to 100 students from the year prior. And we need to continue to work at attendance. There are many growth areas. I don't want this to be, this is the only work that we're doing, but we know that specifically chronically absent students at the secondary level is an area that we had to continually come back to. Math and ISAS, specifically at those transitional grades, 5th, 7th, and 9th. Although 7th grade, you guys had some great work going there, so we hope to see that continue. ELA, ISAS, percent proficient, specifically in our transitional grades between 5th and 7th. So some of those data trends that we've talked about in the past still do exist today. And we need to continuously work at them. I know that part of that is implementation of our high quality instructional materials, and we're excited about bringing in additional support for math implementation this next year. That is a part of our plan, and I think that can really be helpful. Really excited at the high school to see how 3DE can help maybe take flight with engagement in students and support some of the student achievement as well. We've got a lot of great things going, and we just came out of a teamwork kind of day together, and I think we have the best team that can make it happen behind me here. So we're going to continue to focus on that strategic plan. Our goal is to be commendable or higher. And I think that we all know how that looks in each individual building, really focusing on removing that targeted status. We want to continue to close the gap between the state average at all of our grade levels, and we're doing that through our focus on PLCs. Both of these two bullets are really going to be fueled by that PLC conference that we're bringing in November. We want to continue to decrease chronic absenteeism and increase our family engagement. Super excited to have Ellie. I didn't know you were here, but excited that she's continuing with that work. And I know Anel has been excited to be her partner with that. We have a lot of additional services that we provide students, and I know at some point Theron had shared the jeopardy with some of the title funds that we typically receive. Some of these that are listed truly were potentially going to be impacted, so it was an incredible message when I found out that we are receiving these title funds. We want to continue to servicing our students outside of the school day. And then I know I talked about math curriculum implementation, and we have applied for a literacy grant that would partner us with the Iowa Department of Education. We're hopeful that we'll receive that, and if we do, it will extend our literacy adoption to 2 years. So those are some areas that we plan to continue focusing on. And I think the next slide is for you. What questions do you guys have?
You may not know the answer to this, Shauna, and that's fine. How does, that dip from 4th to 5th grade, how does that compare to other districts, right? Because that has to, that transition happens everywhere. How does our data compare to other, and I know that doesn't always happen 4th to 5th grade, but.
So I have actually tried diving into that because through the Iowa School Performance Profile, you can see any school's score, and I can actually dive into their data. I just don't know where their grades, where that
transition happens.
And maybe Joe would be able to help us with that. I don't know, Joe, if you would have any way to be able to look at only schools that transition from 4th to 5th grade. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, not an easy way, but yeah, I agree, Shauna. You'd need to compare apples to apples. You'd need to compare those schools that had the same type of transition situation. And yeah, a person could go through different directories to identify that. It would take a little bit of legwork. And I'm not sure what the data pool would look like after doing that either. But yeah, that's what it would take.
Because you just look at the data and you never get back to the level of proficiency that you hit in 3rd grade or 4th grade.
4th grade.
Right? Mm-hmm. It falls off and it never gets all the way back to even to where it was at the 4th grade level. It's close.
Yes. Yep.
And again, part of that there might be a relationship to attendance. We know that as kids get older, we have a higher percentage of kids who are chronically absent. We saw that pattern of increasing strength of negative correlation as kids got older. So we might be fighting a couple different things. We might be fighting just the very nature of the transition, but we have fewer kids who are participating enough in and day out instruction to gain or continue to gain those skills that they need. Again, that's a very easy, simplified summary of a very complex situation.
I have thought a lot about especially the 4th to 5th grade transition, and I know Kyle has, I know Liz has, the instructional coaches have. The building has definitely taken on different strategies to try and make adjustments to eliminate that transitional dip. One thing I know I shared with Joe earlier today is 5th grade is when both band and chorus begin. And that doesn't mean that band and chorus would decrease student achievement by any means, so I don't want that. But it is a chunk of time that's inserted into the day that would otherwise be core learning at the K through 4th grade, if that makes sense. So when students go to band, we can't continue to teach a core instruction like learning or lesson because the students who go to band would miss that core instruction. So it becomes more of a personalized learning opportunity for students where they're on ST Math or Amplify, Lexia. I don't know, there's a lot of hypothesis that's out there. I know that that's what sticks out to me for instructional time. And I don't think we have Lenahan here, do we? No. Yeah. They also change from like self-contained for the most part. At most elementaries for fourth grade, they're self-contained with a teacher, and at Lenahan, they're switching between 2 to 3 teachers. I mean, there's just some different pieces of it that create more of an intermediate school feeling versus elementary school.
And obviously, if you had the answer, we wouldn't have
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I will tell you that I know without a doubt their PLC structures are really strong. Their assessments are standard aligned. They have high quality instructional materials. Like all of those big rocks that are the obvious pieces are there.
And I think, and Kyle's not here, and so if I remember his presentation right, he made a comment about he was a little surprised at the ISAS because their screening data didn't seem like it was better than what the ISAS results showed. Am I characterizing that close to the way he said it, Shauna?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And their screening is CBMR, for literacy, it's CBMR. So students are reading for a minute, and it's supposed to be an indicator of ISAS, but it doesn't always correlate.
Yeah, I know that when I was in Boone, the way we were structured, the kids went through a lot of transitions. Some of them went to early elementary and then upper elementary. Some went to the same elementary, and then then everybody transitioned to one building for 6th grade. It was a 6th grade building. And then they came to the middle school in 7th and 8th, and then the high school. And so I think there is research that, at least there was, that supported the fewer transitions, the better. The more transitions, the more difficult it is to kind of navigate that. What we would see was a dip at the transition, and then after because we focused on cohort groups and their growth, and so we'd see over the course of the next 2 years they would catch up and exceed. They would be back where they needed to be. It was kind of like a restart and then rebuild, and it was just a common pattern. We too have a similar challenge in that all of our kids go to pre-K 6 or pre-K 4, and they jump into a 5-6, and they jump into a 7-8, new environment, new structures, like Shauna was saying, and then the high school. But it also provides opportunity for all kids to kind of experience similar, to be together, get similar, have the same supports available to them. So there's kind of some good and bad with that. But yeah, I mean, our formative assessments, which are state supported, are to be aligned with the state assessments. And so you would hope that if you're getting good results throughout the year as you're assessing and monitoring that it would matriculate into good test scores too. So you would also assume that the more students are in school, the better they'd perform on those tests too. But obviously, it didn't necessarily show that as a significant difference
Right,
for
it
what
wasn't
gains we made this past year. But we've got a long ways to go in getting more kids here more often.
I thought it was interesting that the older the students are, the stronger the correlation, if that makes sense. So are those students that have been chronically absent since kindergarten over and over and over, and it's catching up?
There's that
and-
cumulative effect
right.
of,
So,
Well, and the other thing is, we've got on average a 15 to 20% mobility rate in each of those buildings. So you get 15% of 5,000 kids that are moving out every year, and then they're being replaced by new students, and that's a challenge too, in terms of their performance, so.
Yeah, I would be curious, and it's, I mean, it's just interesting data more than anything else, right? To see how, if you can eliminate the mobility aspect and just focus on the kids who have been here all
The
the
whole
way
time.
through, right? How that data compares to the other data. And again, it's just interesting data, right? Because
Yeah.
at the end
I'm
of the
looking
day,
at Joe
at the end
to
of the day,
see
the
if he
kids
can
who are
do
here
it.
are the kids you have to teach, right? And that's the performance that matters, but it would be interesting data to take
Yeah.
a look at, right?
I totally agree.
Kind of like your, you know, when you disaggregate and compare, you know, our non-free and reduced and non-ELL performance, right?
See, those are so, I mean, it's so easy to manipulate that data. It's within,
Well, let's not say manipulate. That doesn't sound.
sorry. It's so easy to segregate, like to really think through, okay, what do I want to do? You click and then it produces your results, right? Something specific like what you're asking would be incredible if that were also a part of Panorama. So I could, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so I could bring it forward, but
Yeah, it just gets at your point,
yeah.
Dr. Schutte, about the mobility and kids in, kids out, kids back in, kids out again, kids back, you know?
Yeah, and Joe might be able to help in this regard, and Tim and Amy probably remember, but there was a time where students had to be here a full year before their data was they'd be able to take the assessment, but for their data to be included in those building-wide or district results, and that changed a few years back where they discontinued separating those students.
Like full academic year.
Full academic year, yeah.
For accountability, yes. They still have a line in the sand. It's not full academic year, it's partial academic year. And as I sit right now, I can't remember how many days the student needed to be enrolled before the test. But that we certainly could run the numbers that would add maybe a little bit more stability to the test. But someone brought up, are we looking at kids who have moved through the system? Ed Insight, which is a state longitudinal data system that we have access to, used to have a report where you could do that. It was very powerful because it would answer that similar question. If we're just looking at kids who have had a full opportunity to receive the instruction at Marshalltown Community School District, what does the data look like? They have, though, discontinued that report. I've continued to advocate for them to reinstitute that. They stopped it because when we moved from the Iowa assessment to ISASP, they did not have enough data to make it worthwhile. So I'm really hoping that now we have 5, 6 years under our belt with ISASP, that'll be a report we could bring back, and that would be able to pretty easily answer that question.
Thank you.
Any other questions, thoughts, comments?
Just a quick question. So, in your last slide, and you talked about the continue with, some of the supportive programming, and it says if allowed, is that due to funding or is that due to approval?
Yes, so that was more from the standpoint of those title dollars that they were on pause, and we
Okay.
weren't sure if we were going to be receiving them.
Okay.
And we've now, I believe, heard that we will. So,
Okay.
yep.
Any of you folks in the back of the room or the middle of the room, in Tim's case, who came for what was billed as a half an hour and are now here for an hour, have anything you want to share?
Sorry. They told me they were going to leave at 5:30. So. I'm glad they stayed.
Well, I appreciate everybody coming. I appreciate you guys putting together the reports and the slides and all that. It's great every year to go through that stuff. So thank you. Thank you, Shauna. If there's nothing else, then we'll adjourn the work session. time. There you go. Okay, then we'll call the meeting to order. This is the regular board meeting of the Marshalltown Community School District. It's August 4th, 2025. If you are joining us on the live stream, sorry we're a little bit late. We had a work session that went long. If you're here in person, you know all about it. So welcome to those of you here in person. Welcome as well to anybody who might be watching on the live stream. Before we do anything else, we'll introduce the board members here this evening. Starting to my right, we have Zach Wall, Elizabeth Wise, and Sarah Faltis. To my left, Karina Hernandez and Maria Morales. I am Sean Heitman. To my immediate left is Dr. Theron Schutte, the superintendent of schools, and to my right is Mr. Randy Denham, our board secretary. We've got a pink sign-up sheet there on the speakers table for anybody who wants to address the board during public comment time. You'll be given 5 minutes to speak to the board. Please understand that Iowa law prohibits the discussion of specific employees of the school district. Also, in order to comply with open meetings laws, board members will not respond to comments made during the public comment time. Did I get them all, Randy? Got them. Thanks. With that stuff out of the way, would you all please join me in reading the mission statement of the Marshalltown Community School District? We develop learners who have the knowledge, skills, and positive mindset to successfully pursue a meaningful future through personalized learning experiences. And please stand as you're able and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any changes to the agenda tonight?
There are not.
Then is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Faltis Morales, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0. And we're rolling. Abby, recognitions. Theron,
Julie, come on
recognitions.
up.
Julie, come on up.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the?
It's on.
Okay. So Julie Hitchens, Community Foundation of Marshall County. I'm here representing the Rebuild Marshalltown Fund, which was a tornado fund 7 years ago. And we had over 250 donors and have granted over $800,000. So this is our final grant. And I have to tell you, I'm kind of relieved that it's over. But we waited a long time for this one. We are granting to the Franklin Field bike walking path with a glow. So really, we had a committee that makes the decisions. I just execute what they tell me to do, by the way. Not my decision, but I think it's really cool. I'm super excited. The Rebuild Committee's mantra from day one was we aren't just going to rebuild, we're going to rebuild it better. So I'm pleased to present a check to the school district. So we need a photo, though.
If the board could come.
You actually got an hour.
Yeah.
Who knew? Gosh. We needed an hour. Where do you want it? Where's the photo spot?
I have it right here, just so that
Sure. Sure.
Oh, I can
Oh,
just stand
Karina,
up.
you were here. We're all going to get the picture.
Can I just stand here and hide behind everybody?
Yeah, it would just have to be forward, so that way I'm not fighting. And Randy, if you want to be in this photo.
You're not.
Who wants to hold the big check? All right, we're up right now. Okay, we're. Sorry, I was outside when I was using this last week.
check fit in a night deposit?
Randy, where are we gonna keep that?
Okay, now you're gonna prove it.
Spot in the office.
Okay, as long as it's your office.
Maybe, well, it's part of the course of summer, right? So it's-
There's no place to endorse it.
There's a new copy, it needs to be different than that.
All right, moving to the consent agenda. We've got minutes from the July 14th work session and board meeting. Jackie is back there. Jackie, any items to note in personnel?
Yes, we have a staff member who has announced her retirement, Vicki Bolin. She's been with the district since 1995. She started working with Buildings and Grounds in 2015, but has also worked in many other positions in the district, most recently as the evening custodian at Woodbury School. She has been a bus driver for several years. Her dedication to maintaining the cleanliness of our buildings has been seen by staff and students alike. She has also ensured the students' safety as a bus driver. She has been a good addition to the team and will be missed.
Thank you, Jackie. There are a number of interagency agreements and contracts, service agreement for community support advocates to provide supervision services for school-based therapists, a memorandum of understanding between Alexico and the Marshalltown School District, a clinical training agreement between the Iowa Valley Community College District and the school district, an electric facilities extension agreement with Interstate Power and Light Company, an amendment to the agreement with Clapsaddle Garber Associates to expand the scope of design and construction for the Orpheum parking lot, two memorandums of understanding with IJAG, one for the high school program and one for the middle school program, and an agreement with Iowa Valley Community College District to employ and share the services of a college career readiness counselor, a renewal of the district's milk contract with Anderson Erickson Dairy, a renewal of the agreement with Heartland Payment Systems for menu planning director, and a contract amendment with Clapsaddle Garber for additional survey work for the Miller Middle School project. Are there questions about or comments about any of those agreements? Then for open enrollments, I think I counted these last night. I think I counted 15 out and 5 in to approve and 1 denial. Randy, any items of note in bills?
There are not.
We've got some auditorium equipment to dispose of. And we need to approve the grant from the Community Foundation of Marshall County in the amount of $58,450.30 for a walking/bike path. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Wall, Faltus? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. That motion carries 5-0. 6-0. 6, yeah. Nobody's on the pink sheet, so Manel, Ellie?
Hello, everyone. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. So tonight, we're here to help explain some attendance regulations that we would propose for some changes coming up. So Dr. Ellie Medina has worked tirelessly, like Shauna was mentioning earlier in her presentation, on our attendance for the past year, and her work has really shown, so I want to commend her for that, and it's a pleasure to be able to join the team and work with her on that. That being said, tonight, if you want to scroll down, whoever's in charge of the PowerPoint. I don't have a mouse, so there you go. Tonight's focus is really going to focus on the state requirements, so the state law, really, around attendance and truancy. We also have another section of state reporting, which we will not go over tonight. That's just a once a year that we report out to the state on our attendance. And then, of course, our district policy. So those are the three different categories, divisions, however we want to categorize them, that we have around attendance. And so this summer, Ellie, Dave, Stanfield, and myself have really been working on truly understanding the state law and making sure that we're in compliance. So Ellie's going to jump in a little bit into explaining a little more, but before we get into that piece, I do want to reassure you that some of the changes that we are proposing, they were not taken lightly, and we are still going to do everything within our power to approach every attendance situation with kindness, grace, and compassion with our families, and our foremost goal with families that are maybe struggling with attendance is to be able to create a partnership in order for them to feel like we can work together on supporting their children here at school. So with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and go with the proposal. Oh,
yeah, thank you so much, Janelle. Hi, everyone. I am so excited to be back here and talking attendance. We're really grateful to have Annelle in that position because, like I've said before, you know, attendance is not standalone. Attendance is just something in our data that indicates that there's a greater issue, and having a director of student services providing that well-rounded support is going to be really essential. So like Director Annelle said, you know, we're looking at attendance not as a, you know, good or bad issue. We're looking at it as we care about the student. We want them in the classroom because, as data shows, there's a strong correlation with academics, social emotional. So we really want to view that framework and attendance as we're caring about the child holistically, and we believe that them being in the classroom is what's going to be most beneficial for them. So just to review, Senate File 2435, I had introduced it last year in like August. So just a reminder, this is a new state law that got introduced last July and that we have adapted. So today we're just making some tweaks in the way that we code to just align more with this policy or this law. So what you have up here are the exemptions or like the excused absences that the state has presented to us. So these are the reasons that we would be able to mark an absence as excused. So we'll go more into detail about these towards the end, but you know, a popular one is if my child is sick or they have a fever, yes, that is an excused absence. We can go to the next slide. And then just to further explain, again, the policy that I've talked about that we have adapted, there is an outline of intervention steps. This is, if you want to look at it more of a truancy intervention or prevention, the state has provided some guidance of what to look for and what to do, what intervention to apply. So at 10% of unexcused absences, that's around 8 days a semester. And I have written around because each semester has a different number of days. So you get a letter sent home, and then you're put on a list for us to kind of closely monitor with a county attorney, mostly us, but it is on a chronic absentee list. And again, we really just want to focus on what are those student needs or that family need. And that's a mandatory letter that goes out at 10%. At 15% unexcused, again, around 12 unexcused days, we do require a meeting with the family and the school. Again, two-way open communication, trying to create an improvement attendance plan. Sometimes they may have issues with transportation or sense of belonging or whatever that may be. We really want to focus on the relationship with the parent, the student, student and the school to try to figure out a solution. And then at 20%, which is around 17 unexcused days this semester, it is a referral to the county attorney office, and then they will determine legal action, which would be a truancy charge. And again, this is our last resort. It's not best practice, but it is the law. And Luke Hansen, who's the attorney that we work with at the county attorney's office, he's also like on the same page as us, and we really look at it as a tool. And we always question, is this charge or is this going to help the child come back to school? So again, we're looking at it as an intervention versus a consequence. Like, it is a consequence because it's the law that you have to be here, but we really look at it holistically and the impact of everything.
So the first proposed change we would like to address under the regulations is the family trip. The one on your, I don't know what my left, is what currently is written in the regulation, and the proposal is on my right. The biggest changes for this would be that we eliminate the 5-day family excused absences because that will not fall within the law. And we would move, if a family were to come to us and report that they're going on a family or an extended trip, wherever that may be, and it's going to exceed 8 or more days, we would temporarily pause their attendance or their enrollment to meet the guidelines that we have. And that is an exception that we have within the law, how it's written.
And then we can go to the next slide. Yep. And you all are welcome to ask questions along the way or at the end too, if you.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And then the second proposed change, we have a disenrollment regulation. I guess it's not a policy, but I believe that this process would put in place for those extended family trips. And since we kind of solved that, or the state has provided with regulations that we would, pause the enrollment and then re-enroll upon their return, we don't really need those 9 consecutive days for disenrollment. So, our new proposal would say that, we're going off of the policy of when a student chooses to move school districts or drop the school, the parent has to initiate that. But we also wanted to have something within our policy or within our regulations that would still allow us to make that decision if a student has been gone for 4 months and we can't find them. It's kind of stacking up our data, and if they're not our student or they moved countries but we haven't gotten that request for records, that we can still terminate their enrollment. So versus following the 9 consecutive days, this is a case by case, and this doesn't happen very often. I would say maybe it happened once last year, where we have a very particular case.
Yeah, so the challenge is that oftentimes, even with parents communicating up front, they would tell us they're taking an out-of-country trip, they're going to be gone a month, or they're going to be gone a month and a half, or they're going to be gone 3 weeks. Where our policy was that if you're gone unexcused, beyond, let's say, the 5, what we used to call excused days, if they were gone for 9 consecutive other days, then we would drop them. And when I first came to the district, that drop meant they were dropped, and they had to re-enroll, re-register, the whole 9 yards. So a few years back, we just found that was cumbersome for both the district and the parent when we all knew what the situation was. So we started instituting a soft drop, and that's what Ellie's referring to. They're, for all intents and purposes, drop, but we're not deleting their information from the system. So when and if they do come back, we can just
activate.
reassign them.
Mm-hmm. And with state guidance, that's still going to happen. We're just not going to have to wait for the 9 days. You know, we can, if the parent comes to us and says, you know, we have to go to Mexico because this is the only time we can go. We want to visit grandparents. This is really important to us. It's going to be more of a partnership. We talk about that it's the parent's responsibility to assist the child while they're gone, and we want to offer that support, you know, that two-way communication. But like Theron said, we have a system in place that we would soft drop them during that time. But again, we want to emphasize that partnership because if the student isn't here, they can't learn. So how can the parent become that primary educator or make those decisions while they're away?
Karina, did you have
Yeah, when students are either soft dropped or dropped, when they come back, are they still considered chronically absent? Like, can you still see their absences from either being dropped or soft dropped?
That's a great question. So that's soft drop, like on Panorama. So again, that's where we get into state reporting and then those different key players that Anel showed at the beginning. So on Panorama, you can't see that chronic absenteeism total. Those days don't count because they were unenrolled from our district, even though they were within our system. On Infinite Campus, which is what we kind of utilize for our data tracking, since we still want to keep track of that student, it does report it. So if, you know, Dr. Smith wants to compare our data with test scores and attendance, she could compare the data from Infinite Campus. That's kind of our raw data numbers. That includes those soft drops. That's a great question.
We won't lose the data.
Yeah, okay.
But it won't be reported to the state under Panorama.
And that's not like we didn't make that up. The state guidance
Right,
is
yeah.
So everybody's doing it. We're not doing anything weird.
Yeah.
So again, the assumptions that we show, just to explain them a little bit easier for parents to understand. You know, I think Anel and I were talking and we're like, can we just make it just an absence? We don't have to put excused or unexcused, but we can't do that, unfortunately, in the Infinite Campus. So this is going to be a little different for families and parents because every absence will be unexcused regardless of what the absent is, except for the following. The following under the state exemption will be excused. So again, we're talking illnesses, doctor's appointments, doctor notes, if they're being sent home by the nurse or counselor due to mental or physical health, if it's within their IEP plan, if they have partial schedules, 504 plan, religious events such as funerals, weddings, fasting observations, legal reasons, and then if they have graduated. So again, it might seem scary. I know a lot of parents who are not used to like seeing red on their child's profile will be kind of hesitant, but remember that you won't even get a letter from me until there's 8 unexcused absences. So I think that's just a reminder to parents.
And where we may anticipate some of the conflicts is like, for example, if a family wants to take a college visit, we would have to mark them unexcused. Yeah, I know, right?
Family vacation too.
If it's under 8 days, we would have to mark them unexcused. So if a family wants to take an extended weekend, say like a Monday, Friday, since they don't reach that 8 day for us to drop, they would all be unexcused.
Yeah, and I saw the reactions about the college visits and the other absences. Yes, believe me, I also want kids to go to college and go visit colleges. So yes, you know, whenever parents have called and kind of express not agreeing with this policy, I always direct it back to state representatives or your local representative, just kind of giving feedback about some of those challenges. Because really, we just want to focus on the unexcused absences and students who are facing, you know, challenges. But we hope that, you know, if we're looking at 8 unexcused absences per semester, that's 16. That's a lot of absences. You know, we hope students don't miss that much a year. But if they do, you know, it goes back to, again, the parent and the partnership of, you know, what are they doing to help the child kind of make up everything that they're missing while they're gone.
Yep, and I think the frustrating part for some of our families may be like, I am partnering with you, I am communicating with you, and I'm taking my child to a college visit, which is appropriate, and still you're marking them unexcused, and now I've had some illnesses, now I reached the 8 day mark, and now I'm getting a letter feeling like I'm being reprimanded, and here I am telling them, no, we're going to partner together. But it's all in to stay within the state law. Those are some situations we will have to deal with on a one-to, and again, that's when I go back to what I stated earlier. We're going to take each case with kindness, with grace, with a partnership, and just make sure that we communicate and help them understand the law, the state reporting, and our policy, which is those three different areas. But a family will not get a letter if they don't reach those 8 days within that semester. So, and then it kind of is a clean slate second semester.
I guess at the end of the day, an absence is an absence.
An
Like
absence
attendance
is an
theft,
absence,
You know,
yeah.
it doesn't matter. It's an absence. so.
Right. Yeah. And I love that you said that, Karina, because, we're not talking about state reporting, but hopefully we can present data later on whenever that comes out on the state profile. But they see an absence as an absence. So I think really, changing our framework on attendance as like a PTO day, but we're not paying them to be gone. But yeah, that's the closest thing that I can think of.
I know as a principal, when I would get calls after families have received a letter, they were first irate. They're like, what? I communicated with you. We talked. We had a conversation. We had a plan as to how I was going to support my child. I said, yep, this is just to let you know how many absences your child has because it's still impacting their education. So some parents were surprised. Some families were surprised, like, whoa, they're already up to 10 days. Yep, they're already up to 10 days because they're missing here and there. And that's something that, and it changed their minds. It's like, oh, I didn't realize they had so many absences. So sometimes it's just awareness. And again, we will try to approach every situation with a partnership and work with them. And yeah.
I think, going back to college visits, I got hit up by two different parents and they weren't going to hit the 7-8 days or whatever you're talking about. But to them, they thought, why? The kid has an opportunity and maybe it's on this day to see that college. And
we agree.
Do you have any thought on that at all? Or?
Yeah, a lot of colleges will have weekend visits as well when you aren't in school in Marshalltown, but sometimes there's ours, and so I know Pella Christian doesn't give credit after a student misses 8 days of school for the semester, so most public schools are a lot more lenient than that. I definitely lean more towards the lenient side, so I saw how much money was for about 20 grand per student. So we really want to make sure that the students are here while the education is being offered.
I guess going back to that is for those students that don't miss any days, right? And they're not on that watch list or so many days, they're getting penalized as absent. And maybe it's whatever college it is, it's that day they have to go to be there. And to them, it's important because they take school seriously, and they don't want that docked as absent. How do we work with those families?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think
the district could put out a letter saying that, in the district's opinion, it was good cause. They're under 8 days missing for the entire school district, and so they could do 7 colleges or 4 colleges if it's a 2-day visit. Something that would reassure the parents that the school district feels like it's a good use of the student's time. And even if it lists that they're in good academic standing and lists that their GPA is doing well, I think it would really help the parents feel like the school district is valuing them.
Yeah, I don't know that any district that I've worked for has ever frowned upon a high school student missing school for a college visit. Having successfully gotten 2 children through college, I know with each of them, and especially based on the cost of the college, it was critically important that we and they thoroughly investigated the school to find out if it was the right fit for them. When you go to those weekend visits, those are kind of dog and pony shows. And so it was always, we did that, but we also arranged, once they narrowed their list down, to have them go on what would be considered a normal day so that they could really get a feel for what the school is like, because in some cases it was a $30,000 a year decision or maybe a $40,000 a year decision. So what you don't want is spending that money, sending a young person to school and finding out it's not a good fit, and then having to start all over again with that process. I honestly feel like that's still a major flaw in the current law, not crediting that when our whole goal is to get kids to want a desire to go on to some form of post-secondary education, whatever that be, whether it's 4-year, 2-year, vocational school, whatever. So the other thing is that, and I know that there was some discussion early on between year 1 and year 2 of the implementation on trying to once again provide high schools or school districts with some flexibility based on the circumstances for why the kids were gone, with all the different types of things that kids are involved in this day and age outside of school. It's not unusual for the kids and or families to maybe need to be gone on a Friday and Monday in order to do whatever it is that they're up to. Maybe let's say it's athletics. It's playing at a national level for AAU volleyball or basketball or something like that. You know, if the kids that are doing that are being highly successful when they're in school and they're doing what they need to do when they're gone to make up for that, why are we penalizing them by counting that towards chronic absenteeism or having their name go to the county attorney, 3/4 of the way through the school year, if that's something that happens once a month or whatever. I mean, I think schools need the latitude to help look at the personalized situation of every kid and family in that circumstance and try to make a determination on how serious an offense or not that sort of thing is. And I think what's happening as a result of it, since private schools aren't held to the same accountability, is that families are sometimes making decisions to go other places, even though they want their child in the public school. They don't want the stigma that's associated with their kid being labeled chronically absent if the absence is for legitimate reasons. And so if the accountability isn't at a private school, a charter school, a homeschool, or whatever, it seems like a ridiculous reason for someone to make that decision, versus the academic merits of what they're at. But that's kind of what's happening in some cases now, just because of the attendance law.
Yeah, and I appreciate the invitation. I'm mainly here to listen and
Yeah.
hear feedback. I wasn't there when they passed the original law. Only just got there this past year. We definitely loosened up the requirements and made the letters less onerous and less costly. But I really appreciate the feedback, and we'll definitely bring back to the education chair to add in a couple days of excused college visits.
Yeah, and I
your
appreciate
nephew-
you.
Was it your nephew that had was the tennis player?
Grandson, yeah.
Grandson, yeah. Especially if someone, and I don't know if in the days of AI or online learning, if we could send some sort of package of condense the teacher's lesson plan for that day and have the student turn in something so that while they're traveling, if it's a multi-day trip, that they could
And
stay
that's
with. So I know when I was in school with Mrs. Sills, if I missed a week for an academic camp, and I learned a lot while I was there, but I came back to math and to reading. The reading I kind of caught up and could do Dr. Hogg's work, but the math was really hard because it built on itself. And I learned a lot while I was away and used that too. But I've missed that, and it took a whole semester to catch up from that week that I missed. So it was tough on both sides.
Yeah, and that's always been an expectation that the child and or parent would work with the teacher or whomever to figure out what they needed to do to not fall behind, to make up that work and stuff. But now we're just talking about a black and white situation. Regardless of whether they do that, it's still an unexcused absence.
Yeah, David, and I think I could echo what Dr. Schutte said. A lot of the feedback that I received last year, just parents wanting more additions to those exemptions. That whether that be college visits or something that is linked to academics. Because again, like Anel said, we put it back on the family and we're there to support them. And if they're openly communicating with us and, doing the makeup work, promoting learning, we want that family to have that flexibility. So just adding more exemptions to that list would be great.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come. I had invited you and Mrs. Warmy to come, our state senator. She wasn't able to make it tonight, but I just wanted you to hear the conversation because, our approach and our policies and regulations are continuing to be adjusted, as we better understand what we can or can't do within the confines of the law. And I guess the message is that hopefully there'll be further engagement with the practitioners who are having to implement that law to figure out what's working, what's not, and to continue to make tweaks to make it as good as it can be. It's a significant tightening of the way it used to be, because it used to be that kids were either truant or they weren't truant. And in order to be truant, they had to miss upwards of 8 days a quarter or 32 days a year. So they had to have 32 unexcused days before the court system would do something in regards to truancy, which was a lot. And now changing the language, there's still truancy there, but there's also chronic absence. And the goal is for kids not to be chronically absent, because we know at that point and beyond is where the research generally tells us it will have a significant negative impact generally on their education. So I'm glad we're moving the bar in the right direction. We're doing a better job with Ellie's assistance and the principal's efforts, engaging the families and trying to take more time, as Anel said, to figure out what the root cause, of these situations are. And sometimes they're legitimate and sometimes they're not so legitimate. And we also have a unique population of parents that travel, with their families, and they travel at different points of year, whether school's in session or not. And that also, creates complications too. So that's why we're talking about needing, I guess, to further emphasize the importance of not being gone for long extended periods of time, if at all possible, being more thoughtful about when those times are. For example, when Anel and I spoke about this presentation and possibly making some adjustments like the 8-day versus 9-day soft drop, or getting rid of the 5 grace days on vacation because we can't technically do that, at the same time, we want to be very respectful of the importance of families getting together and being able to spend that quality time, whether it's over the holidays and the summer or what have. And this happens to be a year where we have 2 full weeks off at winter break. And so even if that's extended for a week, which creates a 3-week opportunity, or maybe 2 on both, or 4 weeks on both sides, this is an opportune year to make those adjustments, because naturally they have some time that's not going to count against the child or the family in this regard. But it also invites potentially us to have some conversation now that the legislature has provided the opportunity for a waiver to consider going to a year-round or what's really a balanced calendar approach, which the district had investigated. Sean will remember the year prior to my arrival, but because of the law, it was not possible for the district to do it, because the condition of the committee was all buildings had to be able to do it. Well, the law was high school could not go on that because of wanting the kids to be available to work. So now there is a waiver for the opportunity to apply and be considered. I don't have any preconceived notions whether that is something that our community would want or not want, but it's also another way to provide lengthier breaks throughout the year to help accommodate these extended trips and vacations.
Yeah, and I think that summer work schedule was probably a carve out for Clear Lake, in their tourism industry. And so I like, as much as possible, having a local control and having the board be able to make the decision, just because we do have a unique cultural perspective here, and people might want to take a month trip in the winter, and that might be a really good decision for the board to make if that's the decision you guys come to through your discussions. But I just also wanted to commend the staff who care and are going and chasing down the kids and making sure their families have, whether it's high ACEs scores or barriers to transportation, and making sure our kids are getting to school and doing the best that they can every day. And the results in the working group showed that we've most of the time halved those and getting a lot closer to the state averages. So I wanted to say appreciate your work on that, and it means a lot for our kiddos, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and before I conclude, just thank you for the shout out, but really it is the schools and the families, like the families, the parents getting your kids to school, and I know how big of a responsibility that is. You're balancing jobs, you're balancing childcare, you're balancing going to appointments outside of town because we don't have enough doctors. So just truly so thankful for all the families and the students who have taken this so seriously. This is your work, and I can confidently say that every school has decreased their chronic absenteeism number. Again, we won't share data until it actually comes out, but again, all of that kudos to the leadership at the schools, and then the families first and foremost.
David, I have a question. So when a question was asked earlier, there was an amount set on a student when they were absent. What was that amount that you said?
The amount of it was before I was elected, so about 2 years ago, every district was struggling with COVID. I know those were the general trends, and there were a lot of students. So I think Johnston, West Des Moines, I'll crap on them because they're not here to defend themselves, but they just automatically disenrolled those students, and so their numbers looked a lot better than other districts that were accurately reporting who was and wasn't at school. So the Des Moines School District was really struggling, and I think they hit over 40% of their students who were chronically absent, and there were a lot of students enrolled there, and so it was really making a big impact. But I know there's some causation with the correlation, but there's also third variable impacts like ACEs scores and others that affect students' desire to be engaged in their peer group and with the other community members.
I was talking more of the money amount.
You had a dollar amount.
Yeah, you had a dollar amount when you mentioned earlier, or did I?
Per district or for the whole state?
Per student when they miss.
Oh.
Are the decisions based on that, or is it decisions based on?
Not at this time. I mean, there's discussions about that, but not at this time.
Okay.
It's still a per year funding, 20,000 depending on if they're ELL or an IEP or things like that.
Okay.
So less if they're not. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's an average.
The other question's more directed. I know this last year we struggled with the city with kids under 2 miles, I believe, with transportation and with the city getting rid of bus routes. Have we been engaged with the city to try to get them re-engaged to get these kids to school?
So Anel and I have actually had conversations about transportation. So if you didn't know, again, Rex is not here, but if you are in the K through middle school grades, you have to live over 2 miles to qualify for busing. And if not, we give out vouchers. I think that's such a wonderful opportunity that we have in partnership with the city buses. Whenever I was contacting them last year just to partner and create more awareness, they're also so short-staffed. So, they are providing transportation to our students. I don't have the numbers in front of me, and I'm sure Anel will be reaching out, but we're short-staffed bus drivers and they're short-staffed bus drivers. So transportation is like one of the biggest issues that we see over and over, right? Because parents may have to work in the morning, and 2 miles is so long, but that it does come from like the state, and they can say it's up to us, but we don't have the funding or like the people resources to provide more bus routes. So that is such a big challenge. And I feel like every other day I hear from a parent saying like, hey, I can't get my kid to school. Like, what should I do? Should I change my work schedule? Like, so that's something that we definitely have to keep exploring, but I just don't know a good answer to how we can solve that.
As a school district, we don't have a choice. We got to get the kids to school, and I think we need to talk to the city more. We need to partner better and get those transportation kids going again.
Yeah, I feel we have very positive and strong relationships with the city, but we can't control their capacity to take on more kids and families based on the bus drivers and or the buses they have. So, we started doing that during the pandemic when we had ESSER funds to utilize for that. And then the board approved through working with Randy and Rex are taking that on in the general fund when those funds no longer existed, or possibly through at-risk, I don't know. But, we're doing what we can at this point. We are going up and beyond by far what most districts do, but we can only do what we can do, and we can't as a school district, change the city's circumstance in terms of number of drivers, number of buses.
They're fully aware, though, of the situation.
Yes,
Conversations are ongoing.
they are. With Rex, but yes, conversations are definitely ongoing. I know Rex has been tirelessly trying to hire for our district, but also in constant communication with the city. I know they were really short bus drivers too, so it's that human resource that we're missing. Not that they don't want to partner with us, they just don't have the capacity right now, but we will continue to work with them and partner with them for sure.
I know they were very short considering they cut routes.
They did.
They're going to the college at 8 in the morning and that's it throughout the day. They're not. They cut that route when they were going at least 2 to 3 times a day, and I was like 1 time. That's all they've cut. Unfortunate.
Well,
Any other questions or comments?
no.
So they will be back
So the regulation will come back then,
at the
right?
next meeting, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next topic is the Franklin Field, West End Park walking, jogging, bike path. And I'll try to succinctly capture again the story about how this all came about. While we were embarking on the Franklin Field reconstruction, one of the challenges as our contractor and our construction management firm were talking about the project was how to best implement the retention walls that were on the east side, that are going in on the east side of Franklin Field. And the discussion wound up evolving around if we were to allow Construct to basically destroy part of the sidewalk in order to have a better logistical situation on how to implement those retention walls, it would actually save us money based on what had been bid and what the new plan would be to implement a sidewalk. Well, at that same time, city engineer Heather Thomas, who was part of the conversation, was like, well, if you're going to need to redo part of the sidewalk, would you consider doing an 8-foot path, which is the minimum standards for a bike, walking, jogging path, and similar to the width that's going in across Marshalltown and connecting Marshalltown to other places. And then we, as the city, would continue that path from Franklin Field or where your property line ends at West End Park through the park and basically connecting to Summit to Main Street in a fashion there. And, my immediate reaction was, oh, geez, this project is already a lot more expensive than what we were banking on when we first started. I don't know if I could get the board to support that, or if we could even figure out how to fund that. And so it just kind of brings to light how important the Rebuild Marshtown funds were to allow to make this happen. And as I've shared with the board, between the money we already within the project had devoted to this, as far as 13th Street was concerned, and then the Rebuild Marshtown grant and some monies that have been fundraised from the classes 79, 80, and 81, and the fact that we raised much more than what the target amount was, and then having some discretionary, Marthel and Ty have been kind of piecing together, what will it take not only to create this path along all of 13th Street on the east side of Franklin Field, but then also down into West End Park on the school district property. And then the other caveat is Zach had brought to my attention when I first started talking about this to him. He said, well, have you seen about Ankeny's Glow Trail, which I actually had, but I also knew that that would lead to some significant cost increase too to go to that. And so working with Matt Jensen over at Construct, we investigated what it would take to make the West End Park part of the path a glow path, which I believe Morristown would be, if we were to pursue this, only the third community in Iowa to have such a path, which is a really neat and unique feature that we could further enhance West End Park. It also, as Julie had said, when I spoke to the subcommittee of the Rebuild Marshalltown and pitched this idea or project, they were super, super, super excited about more things even beyond Franklin Field potentially happening to bring added value to our community as it relates to anything that happens down on West End Park or 13th Street. So long story short, the total cost to the district from Construct, for which we have the bill there, is $140,000, which includes the incorporation of the glow stones to create a glow path. The other part of the equation was, okay, if I'm able to convince the board to commit to the school district's part of this project, what can we expect from the city of Marshalltown in terms of taking it on and handling it in a timely fashion in terms of continuing the project through West End Park? Because what I didn't want, and which I was confident I could speak on behalf of the board, we don't want to do our part of the project and then have it be a path that leads to nowhere, basically a creek, and then 1, 2, 3 years later, have the city complete their portion of it. So Kelsey Stafford, the new Park and Rec director, Carol Webb, the city administrator, took before the city council on Monday of last week their proposal, their first blush at taking a look at it. Their cost is closer to is projected at $617,000, largely because they would be responsible to put a bridge over the creek in addition to creating the path that would continue on through West End Park. But even though it was not an action item at city council, and Robert was there as well, there was pretty much unanimous consent that the council was supportive of this moving forward, largely because the city has some dedicated funds that they had intended to use to improve West End Park in a different way that they could devote to this. So at the end of the day, for us, it will come out to about $25,000 more than we otherwise would have planned to attend, even though it's a $140,000 improvement. And obviously I've spoken to Randy too, and he feels like we're in a position where we can accommodate that amount beyond what we had planned to. So this would be a big step, and the board approving us being able to move forward on that. Tentatively, I think the plan would be, in terms of the schedule of the whole project, that the last we talked about it, I think sometime in September is when they would start on this, both the sidewalk replacement along 13th Street that would need to happen, and then also the trail. So within September and October, our portion of the trail and sidewalk would be completed. What you have before you is a very preliminary plan on what the future thinking is regarding the trail. And so, you know, as you see Franklin Field up there, everything from the dark yellow on Main Street to the north is part of what we're talking about between the school district and the city. We'd be responsible for the, I'll call it gold and then yellow, and then the city would take it from where the red is there, through the park to what I believe is going to be a new parking area that they're creating, or they're going to further enhance that parking that it connects to. And then the future plan would be for it to continue south from the intersection of 13th Street and Main, down 13th Street, and it will for sure connect on Lynn Street with the back of Miller Middle School. They've got it showing going to the dead end on Boone Street and then going to the west in order to connect up with the trailhead. But prior to this chart being showed to the city, we had talked also about once it gets here to Miller, as you know, we're buying up these properties and going to turn that into parking, enhanced parking for Miller. So our thought was to run it due south, which could then connect with the trailhead, I think, in two different locations. One would be between Boone Street and Lincoln Way. There's a connection to the trail. And then there's another connection further to the south at the Little League Park, obviously. So as far as the city is concerned, this is very, very preliminary. Nothing's set in stone for sure what directions it will go. But I'm hoping at a minimum it could go both directions in order to connect at multiple places. But it will definitely be wonderful for us as far as easier access and connectivity both to the practice field and then the Franklin Field for our middle school students as well. But one of the goals of the city is through paths having greater connectivity within the community, as well as, of course, the Big Trails project that's connecting our community to other communities as well. But it's very, very exciting, and I've really been appreciative of the city's willingness to collaborate and talk and just to have the vision to come up with this idea of doing the West End Park project as well. Questions?
Yep. Are there any? If there are not, is there a motion to approve the Construct Inc. quote for the Trail at Franklin Field project as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Wall Faltus? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0. Okay. Softball, baseball fields.
All right, well, thanks for having me. I, by no means, am an expert on a lot of this, but I've learned a lot the past year. So with, consulting with our baseball, softball coach, and, Todd Golding was originally part of this, and Todd Carl got brought up to speed, and of course, Dr. Schutte and Randy as well. So, first of all, a little background, Ogden Turf, it's a local company out of Manchester, Iowa. Guy Eric, he's pretty impressive resume. He's been turf manager at several minor league ballparks. So he also has worked on anything from recently now has his own company, high school fields to our high school baseball fields to the state softball fields to the Field of Dreams. So he's done a lot. So basically, what the work would consist of, first of all, start with baseball, is addressing some lips on our field. Zach, you could probably speak to some of this, like at Little League, like there's some lips, you know, so basically if I'm playing shortstop, I run out shallow left field to catch a fly ball, all of a sudden I'm kind of running downhill. So it's, you know, kind of a safety issue, and it's pretty obvious on our baseball field. We have lips, third base as well as first base, kind of where the infield material meets the outfield. So also he had addressed our pitching mounds, bring that back up to speed to when it was originally built, give our pitchers and opposing pitchers, you know, better push and balance off the rubber. And then our home plate we experienced some water issues, and I know some people are like, well, why don't you just tarp it? Well, we do. Water still gets underneath the tarp, and even this summer with all the rain we've got, we had to cancel a couple. If we get a bunch of rain overnight, which seemed like almost every night this summer, we had to cancel a few JV2 games, which go at 10:30 in the morning just because our home plate was underwater. So this would bring the home plate up and kind of eliminate those water issues. So that would be kind of the scope of the project with baseball. And then with softball, this is a really big deal for softball because the current infield material, I don't know why or when it happened, probably long before any of us were sitting in these chairs, but our infield material for softball is what should be on a warning track. So I've heard any complaints from, you know, just sliding on it, it hurts. You know, I've had lots of torn pants, and I know that, you know, could be pretty common over a course of a softball field or season, right? But you know, it's not really the correct material what should be on a softball infield. So that would be basically replacing the entire infield with actual infield mix that you would see at like the state softball tournament at Harlan Rogers and Fort Dodge, and would give our infield a whole new look. And of course the pitching mound and the batter's box would go with that. So you can start work as soon as late August to early September. And the course of the work would take about a week, a little over a week, and he'd have it all ready, and it would be ready for next season. So with that said, I'd open it up to questions. I will say, you know, just on a personal note, we've made some really good improvements at softball with our bleachers, new press box, new scoreboard, and this infield would be a really big deal for our softball program.
I would like to say that softball is long overdue. It's much needed.
I agree.
With the material, the couple things, I did go out last night to see why are we doing the baseball field, what's going on, and from the stands you don't see the lip, but when you go out and walk on the field, it is a dangerous environment for a kid going up trying to catch a ball. Yes. or bouncing off and hitting them in the face. So yeah. It's a much needed project. The question I do have is on the infield. On the softball, you have a beautiful red brick, wrong material. That's supposed to be the warning track. Looking at the bid, it looks like it's going to go in the warning track. They're using that for the warning track. Does that sound right?
So what's on the infield now for softball, they would repurpose that to the warning track.
It is a beautiful red.
Yes.
What are they going to do on the baseball? Are they going to turn that red to the warning track?
That's not included in this. They did talk about putting in more of a warning track along kind of like the foul territory.
Yep.
Because it is a long run over from third base to the fence in foul territory. You know, if you overthrow to first base, that runner can get to third base, right? So I know that would be included to include more of a warning track.
I guess what I'm getting at is I think like the baseball, and I don't know if there's a cost differentiation or if it's included, the softball is going to get a red warning track. The baseball has white. Is there enough material to do the red on the baseball?
That's a good question. I don't have the answer to that right now, Zach, but I could figure that out for you. Yeah.
Yeah, what's interesting about this whole thing is that 8 years ago, when we partnered with FEH to do an assessment of our high school and Franklin Field athletic venues, because it was not part of the district facility improvement plan, the baseball and softball were by far the best facilities that we had at that time, with the exception of just the roundhouse, which had been renovated. And so with work that's happened over the course of the last 7 to 8 years now, it's the only thing left really to have to bring up to modern day and a high standard to make sure that our kids are able to compete on similar venues as what they do when they go visit other schools and stuff. So this is something that's a pretty foundational level thing that we really need to take care of for the kids and coaches, I think.
And the material for the softball field, did I read that it was supposed to be like the Fort Dodge State? Is that the type of material?
Similar,
They're
yeah.
using?
It's called Dura Edge. So it's like, yeah, I mean, it's something you'd see on like a minor league ballpark. I mean, I do know that.
I think I saw somewhere like sod getting brought in, or where's that getting put in at? I think on the quote there said something about grass or sod.
Yeah, so that would be for to help bring the lip up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think beyond, the lip also can create some dilemmas for balls that are hit that go into it too, not get true bounces and stuff like that.
I think it's a much needed project. The only thing I'd be interested in is if you're doing the softball, the red in the outfield warning track, is there enough material to do red so it matches?
Right. And
versus the white.
And I did talk with Eric the other day too. I was like, hey, while you're out here, can you look at our softball bullpens, for example? Those maybe down the line, that would be something to, and he said absolutely. So.
Randy, what's the funding source for this? Pepple. Okay.
In this quote, it's still valid, right? Even though it's over 30 days?
Yeah, he
It
just sent us a
expired in
new one. He did
April.
not change the date, but he gave us a new one last week.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And actually, this one was a little less expensive than the last one because they're also doing work at Little League, and so he was able to reduce the cost because of not having to, do a singular mobilization and stuff. And I think his plan is to knock it all out in conjunction with one another.
I have one more question. Are they doing, so when you do, because I don't know the answer to this, when you do a field, do you add drainage to the field? So will there be adequate drainage for that material?
That, I think if you scroll down,
Part of this does include drainage
It does.
improvements for softball.
yeah, same
And
with,
we're also looking at, we'll be coming before you most likely in the coming weeks with a proposal just to improve the overall drainage down in that area, because especially with all this rain that we've had, there's some issues on the east side of that stadium complex that are also impinging upon the properties further east. I've got Chuck Springer's been working with Adam Daters, and Todd may be engaged in those conversations too, because this has been an ongoing issue from when we did the original stadium reconstruction. But we absolutely want him to take care of those drainage issues at the softball backstop that we have.
Yeah, and out in the field, this, when you were talking about how you couldn't have, there's also, standing water on those softball fields. So I would hate to put the new field in, not have the drainage, and then run into the same issues.
Okay, well, this project's fully, for the most part, focused on the infield. So it'd be the infield area and grass that the drainage improvements would be made. But if it's deemed down the road that we need to do further things like for outfield, we can try to figure that out.
No, it's actually in the infield that
Yeah.
there's water, standing water. So I just didn't know how that worked with
Yeah, this should take care of that.
Okay. Sounds good.
Are there other questions, comments? Then, is there a motion to approve the Ogden turf and grading estimate for the renovation of the high school baseball and softball fields as presented?
So moved.
Wall Faltus, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you,
All
Ryan.
right, thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Randy.
You just need that document open, Amy, if you want to go to page 17. So at the July meeting, I had presented our annual updates to our business procedures manual. If you recall, a lot of the updated changes are to processes just around our just cash handling and some updates to implementing the night deposit for activities, things of that nature. The only change from the July meeting is the page that Amy has up for you right now. After what I didn't have at the last meeting, we had put a recommended gate reconciliation sheet together due to scheduling and whatnot. Ryan and I hadn't been able to connect on this, been able to connect with him and Stacy Galima both since then. So just clean this sheet up a little bit, simplified the ticket reconciliation, and then we added a section in the bottom there to help reconcile the startup cash after each event as well. So that's the only change from what was presented at the last meeting, but otherwise no changes. So unless there's questions that anyone has, I can answer those.
Are there any questions? Is there a motion to approve the 25-26 Business Procedures Manual as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I thought Zach and Sarah were going to get nothing. You beat them, Liz.
Carino was second.
Wise Hernandez. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0. And policies.
Those are me again.
And you've got the first ones, yeah.
Yeah, the first ones. Again, these were presented at the last meeting. Some changes with the travel compensation, changing that to just a flat per diem rate per day instead of the per meal, as was presented last time. And then updates to our public purpose policy, which after meeting with the Finance Committee in early July and then presented to you all at the July meeting, some enhancements to that policy to assist with employee recruitment and retention and allow some flexibility at the building level for some of their building budget discretionary spending.
And those policies, there's nothing that changed in those from?
No changes from what was presented in July, no, correct.
Okay. Are there any questions then for Randy?
Nope.
Then is there a motion to approve or the amendments to 40107 and 70504R1 and waive the second reading?
So moved. Second.
Faltus Hernandez. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. That motion carries 6-0.
So I'm
And
pinch
Darren,
hitting
you're
for
gonna
Leah.
fill in for Leah on the initial reviews.
Yeah, so we had three new policies to be reviewed. 206.4R1, Secretary Treasurer Roles and Responsibilities. 207, Board of Directors Legal Counsel, and 208 Ad Hoc Committees. We are recommending they simply be marked as reviewed, and there's no need for changes.
Any questions? Okay, they will be marked as reviewed. Abby left, so I can't ask her if there's any, if there. Oh, is there any additional items in communications, Abby?
Not that I am aware of. I did have a staff member reach out to me today asking me to ask you guys if you're interested in working concession stands on August 29th. That'll have to be put on the
We
agenda.
absolutely say yes. 100% of us.
Okay.
You have 7 days notice.
I believe only the board president on behalf of the entire board, I'm just saying.
August 29th.
The 29th.
I think she said the 29th.
Is that the first
Friday.
home- first
No,
home
you're
football
not.
game?
We're all going.
I think the admin should all serve on August 29th. That's a great idea.
Directors first. Yep, August 29th is when she asked me to ask you guys.
Let me guess who asked.
I know.
Yeah, we were gonna talk about attendance. You know.
Is that the first football
But when
game?
you're working that football game, it's like take
Like, what are we
the balls
working?
to me, you know.
What sport is it?
What sport is it?
It's football.
Football.
It's the first home football
Well,
game.
first home football game.
Ah.
Yeah.
We will have so much fun. Count me in.
Liz is going to.
We're gonna do it. Sarah, come on. Maria.
We're doing
Dr. Schutte, come on.
Be a big crowd.
Now that new concession, that's air conditioning in there, right?
It is Eric.
Yes.
What?
Oh, okay.
Tornado safe.
Is it?
So do we have to get like matching
Labor
shirts
Day
and
weekend.
everything?
Oh, maybe.
Guys. So
Marshall County School Board.
That's Labor Day.
Yes, let's do
Labor Day
this.
the first?
it sure is.
Oh, okay.
Are you
Well,
going
come
away,
if you
Sarah?
can.
Now.
You are not.
Actually, Tyler could have golf.
Okay.
Email me if you'll be there. I'll let her know so that way she knows and anticipate that kind of thing. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, Andy.
I forget to
We'll
email.
meet about this.
Probably no committee reports. I'm assuming no committees met since the last meeting. Looking at reminders, are we gonna make Leah do initial
Yes. we'll
reviews
shift
for the
reviews.
18th?
Yeah.
Okay. And then our next regular board meeting will be August 18th. Any items for future agendas or future meeting topics? Then, what have we done this evening to improve education for the students in Marshalltown?
I think hearing the data about the test scores was very, very interesting. So I appreciate all the time you put together for that.
Yes, I was gonna
And
say
good
that.
news on that too.
For sure.
Some highlights.
Thank you for that. I also think it's important to talk. I always like the conversations about attendance, as it is part of our goals as a district too. And so just keeping up to date of what's going on, not only with the law, but also what are we doing as a district, and how we're supporting our families, even though the state law is a little rough sometimes. But again, an absence is an absence. So if we can try to work with families, that's great. And hopefully our legislators are hearing our families and our community rather than looking at the money sign.
Anything else?
Plan to work at a concession stand. Tentatively.
Are the principals gonna watch my kids? That's,
Absolutely,
or
they will.
whoever's on duty.
Or maybe it's all you can eat candy
Admin on
and
duty.
popcorn for them.
Abby's probably up for that, Zach.
Abby's up for that. I've got four.
But Dr. Schutte, I know you're the best babysitter out there. I love this.
I was stripped of my responsibilities on that.
I even have it in my calendar. Sending you the email now before I forget. I think so too.
We absolutely should.
Definitely
We
about
plan
We
this,
love our
Liz?
school board.
Liz, should you and I plan this?
Okay, I'm leaving now.
Well, I'm excited about another collaboration with the city in order to do something that's going to be really special, I think, for the community. And thanks to the Rebuild Marshalltown Committee for helping support, make that happen.
And I mean, Zach, you noted it when Ryan was here. I mean, the softball field in particular is long overdue. And you're right as well, Theron, that was among the higher rated athletic facilities that we had 8 years ago, right? Which I think speaks to where we were 8 years ago in terms of facilities,
Right.
right? So,
It's looking nice down there.
yeah,
Scoreboard and some stands and
Press box,
press box.
New baseball lights
baseball lights are pretty.
and new tarp over the broadcaster's booth or the media booth at the baseball too.
I'd be interested to see, did the city indicate that next step beyond what they're planning on doing currently to get to Miller and then to the trail? Have they kind of indicated of what that
No,
looks
they
like?
just said their plan would be to embark on the West End, their part of the West End Park in the spring.
Yeah.
if there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Baltus Hernandez, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. We are adjourned.
Just send you an email, Liz. Oh.